Yeah, strange as it may seem, I'm actually here to tell you about the dangers of smoking cannabis. If you've seen some of my other videos, you might find that a bit of a shock. But the clue's in the title, smoking. Okay, cannabis, and there has been a report released that will confirm this for you, although it hasn't received the same sort of government or media attention as you would hope. If you smoke cannabis, you're going to suffer the effects of having burnt plant matter inhaled into your lungs. Okay, if you smoke it with tobacco, then you're going to have all the nasty side effects that go along with tobacco, all the cancer, brown lung, emphysema and everything else. Okay, that's what you're going to suffer from. If you smoke your weed neat, you're not going to suffer from any of that, as the report will tell you, but the effects of having smoke in your lungs damages the cilia inside your lungs, so you have to be very careful with it. Now, there is a way around this to safely smoke your weed without any of the negative side effects of smoking tobacco or the effects of having cannabis smoke in your lungs. Okay, and you've got two choices really. You can either vaporize or you can cook. Okay, now let's go with the vaporizers first. Vaporizers, basically, instead of combusting the weed, instead of burning it, they heat it up to a point where all the bits and pieces, all the THC and everything else that you're after, vaporize off. Now, there are people out there that will know what I'm talking about. If you look for something called the Volcano, it's probably the best known of the vaporizers. It's certainly one of the most popular. Basically, it fills a big balloon with cannabis vapor, which you then inhale, which causes you no problems at all. So if you want to smoke weed, then use a vaporizer, but make sure you buy a good one. Some good ones include the iInhale, which is a little portable vaporizer, the Volcano, which I've already explained, and also the V-Tower Extreme. Okay, these are quality made products. They are more expensive, but they are 95% more efficient. Smoking, when you burn it in a cigarette, you lose so much of the THC and CBDs and everything else that you're after because of combustion, because you're burning it. If you vaporize it, it makes it more efficient, so you use less weed. So yes, these products are more expensive, but you will make a huge saving and your weed will last you longer. But make sure you spend the money to get a good one. Some of the really cheap ones that you'll find on the market at the moment use a metal element to vaporize the weed, and sometimes when they heat it up, those metal elements can give off some very nasty fumes. So make sure you buy a good quality vaporizer if that's the route that you want to go down, because you'll probably do yourself more harm than good if you buy a cheap crappy one. Okay, they're not all the cheap, they're not all bad, but you have to be very careful. That's why it's worth spending the money and get a quality product. The other way you can safely take your cannabis is by eating it. Now, not necessarily just by grabbing a bud and stuffing it in your mouth. You can make something called canna butter. To make canna butter, you take your buds, leaves, anything that's covered in the THC and everything else, stick it in a carrier bag, stick it in the freezer for a couple of days to freeze it, basically. That separates the trichomes and other bits and pieces that you want from the weed. You then take some cheap butter that you've bought, quite a lot of it, put it in a pan, melt it down, pour the frozen cannabis into the butter, let it simmer for about 30 minutes, take it off, strain it through some cheesecloth or whatever to get rid of all the lumps, pour it into margarine tubs, put it in the fridge, let it set. There's your butter. Just use exactly the same amount of that butter as you would use normal butter in your recipes. Now, if you're a stoner, you'll understand the munchies. This way you can make some fantastic chocolate cakes and vanilla cakes and everything else with cannabis. So you get your cannabis fix and you get your munchie fix at the same time. But when eating, be careful. It's quite a strong hit if you bake your cannabis. And it can take a little bit longer to kick in. I've heard estimations of up to an hour before it starts to take effect. So, you know, with cooking, if you've never done it before, a little bit of trial and error. Make yourself some fairy cakes. Have one, leave it a while, have another, leave it a while, have another, and just test yourself till you find the level that gets you the buzz and the high or the relief that suits you best. Okay, so cooking, vaporizing, that's the safest way to do it. The only problems that you're going to have if you smoke cannabis is, obviously, if you smoke it with tobacco, you'll suffer all the negative effects and possible diseases caused by that. And if you smoke it neat, then you'll just suffer the ill effects of having smoke in your lungs. but it's better to smoke it neat than it is to smoke it with tobacco. You eliminate the vast majority of the problems if you smoke it neat. The only problem that you're going to have is the effects of having smoke in your lungs. Apart from that, enjoy your weed, people.